Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 278, the double whammy of empty nesting and widowhood.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, grief expert, widow, and mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Shocker volleyball season has started. If you don't know, I went to Wichita State. I live in Kansas, and my daughter was a volleyball player, and I love watching Shocker volleyball. So I'm so excited that the season has started. I'm also excited because this very week, I have Mom Goes On members that decided to go on a cruise together. One of them is a very experienced cruiser and travel agent, and she took the lead and planned it. And then the others, some of them had never been on a cruise before, some of them have, but they're all going to hang out together. I'm sad that I can't be there, but I can't be there because we have a master's retreat coming up this weekend, which will also be so fun for me. Selfishly, I love planning retreats. This one is an Inside Out theme. So we're exploring Pixar's Inside Out and Inside Out 2 and the parallels with grief. And I'm really looking forward to that too. So lots of things going on here. Volleyball, master's retreat, and Grief Essentials is underway. So if you missed out on Grief Essentials, I will tell you that you can get on the waiting list. So you can go to coachingwithkrista.com/work with me. That's where the application is for Mom Goes On and for our private training. If you fill that out and all signs indicate that Grief Essentials is a better fit for you than Mom Goes On, then we will just add you to the waiting list and let you know when the next Grief Essentials opens up. That again is my 8-week program for those who are wanting early grief to be easier. Mom Goes On the other hand, is for those who are kind of stuck in the grief plateau. It's not terrible anymore, but they're not back to loving life yet. And so Mom Goes On is all about creating post-traumatic growth. So both are available. We're still accepting applications for our October cohort of Mom Goes On, most likely when this airs. But Grief Essentials has filled up and we are underway for this round. So that is that. Okay. So often I get emails from people, and Suzanne, who is our client enrollment specialist, she is my team member who's also a widow and a mom, and she's always having conversations with people who are looking at joining our programs. And so often we both hear feedback that says, I'm too old, my kids are grown, or I'm an empty nester, or I'm almost an empty nester, or I have grandkids, whatever. People disqualify themselves from coaching in my programs. And it breaks my heart because sometimes, especially as is the case with empty nesting and widowhood, man, it can be a tough time. It can be a time when coaching would really be helpful and powerful. And that's what made me think about doing this episode is I really want to talk to those of you who are empty nesting and experiencing widowhood at the same time, or you're right on the cusp of that. Maybe your kids aren't out of the nest yet, but the process has started. You're feeling that transition happening in the future. And I think it can bring some really unique challenges that are worth talking about. So I want to share with you 6 challenges that I think are pretty unique and maybe make empty nesting and widowhood a double whammy, an extra complicated time. I'm going to share them with you, but what I ask is that as with anything I offer, you use it for yourself and never against yourself. So compare with the intention to comfort. Don't compare with the intention to despair. Maybe you aren't empty nesting yet. I don't want you to use this as a way to say, well, it must not be as hard for me as it is for others because I'm not having to deal with that yet. Conversely, I don't want you to use this as a way to say that your grief should be easier, right? I don't want you to use it against yourself. Use it to help yourself, to find comfort, to find support, not to despair, okay? Do we have a deal? Heads nodding? Okay. I can't see you, but I trust that we have a deal. So the double whammy of empty nesting and widowhood, I think there are 6 things that make this just even more challenging. First of all, when you lose your spouse or your partner and your children are leaving the nest at the same time, it's a double identity shift. So you're no longer mom in the same way that you were before, and you're also no longer a spouse in the same way that you were before. And most of us have really taken to heart those identities, right? Spouse, wife, partner, mom. And so to have them both shifting at the same time kind of even feels like potentially ripped out from underneath you, can be extra hard. I didn't have this happen to me. I just lost Hugo. I was still fully a mom, right? Kids were 12 and 9. But I still remember the who am I thoughts. I still remember what a challenge it was for my identity to shift in just that one way. And when we're empty nesting and experiencing widowhood at the same time, it's happening double. It's like a double whammy. As I'm saying these 6 things, again, I'm hoping you will use them to comfort yourself, use them to normalize the experience. And then, of course, at the end, I'll give you some suggestions too on ways that you can help yourself. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that it's like this compounded sense of loneliness sometimes, because now you have even more time alone with your own thinking. So your kids would have moved out, and that would have potentially meant then more time with your spouse, more time with your partner. Maybe you were retiring, sometimes not, but still you would have had more time together. Now they aren't there. And yet still you're going home, and now your kids aren't there. So things feel physically empty. It feels emotionally empty all at the same time. It can be this compounded sense of loneliness. And I think that is a double whammy. Also, when you're empty nesting and you're becoming a widow at the same time, you have fewer distractions. Generally speaking, right? When you have kids' activities happening, you have sports events to go to, you have kids' functions, you have things that you're doing because of your roles as both mom and spouse, then not only is there less activity in the house, there's less activity in general. There are fewer things that you can distract yourself with. And I do believe distraction can be very healthy, right? So now we've got the double whammy where we come home, we have less things going on in our calendar, potentially, and less people around us, and more time with our thoughts and less to distract us from our own thinking. Now, that can also be an opportunity, but I'll save that for the end of the podcast. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that we're trying to rebuild 2 parts of life at one time, right? So now you're not just figuring out what does my routine look like now that my kids aren't around? What does my routine look like with my spouse? Or vice versa, right? It's not just trying to figure out what the routine looks like when your spouse isn't there, but your kids are. Now you've got to do both. You are adjusting to a completely new way of being and a completely new way of thinking about your routines and creating new ones, because the routines that you once had don't apply anymore. Also, we could call this a triple whammy if you happen to be retiring at the same time or experiencing a major shift in the way that you spend your days. And sometimes that's not necessarily a permanent thing. A lot of my clients have gone on sabbatical or taken extended breaks from work. And that can be really challenging too, because then you don't have any sort of daily structure that resembles the structure you used to have, which in some ways can be very freeing, but it can also be extremely disorienting and challenging because you have to rebuild any sense of routine for yourself. And then number 5, it can be quite the conflicting emotional roller coaster. So on one hand, you might be feeling very proud of your children and also simultaneously devastated for yourself and for your loss. And it can feel strange, right? To feel that conflict of, on one hand, you're happy, maybe that you see them being successful, but then also you kind of wish they were still there. you would like to be happy. And maybe you see that in them and you want it for yourself. It's not the same for any one of us. Every one of us experiences it differently, but it can be an emotional roller coaster that is fraught with what feels like conflicting opinion. And maybe on one hand, you are somewhat excited about the possibility of what life could be like, and then also simultaneously terrified. And so the mixed emotions make the roller coaster that much more intense. So that's number 5. The 6th thing that I think makes widowhood and empty nesting a double whammy is that you don't have them to share those moments with. Ordinarily, you might, your kids go away, they move out, maybe they got married, maybe they're in college, but whatever they are doing, you are then sharing and discussing those highlights of their lives or even the challenges of their lives with your person. And now you don't have that, which can amplify the loneliness that we feel. And so now, the person that you would have discussed, what are we going to do with the bedroom that child used to occupy but no longer needs? They're not there, right? They're not there to celebrate with you when you hear good news. They're not there to deal with the challenging parenting moments, which still come even when you're an empty nester. And then the bonus number 7, which, depending on what's going on with you individually and your age and all these other factors, you also might be going through menopause or perimenopause at the same time. And in which case, I say, triple whammy, right? Triple whammy. The hormonal changes that come with grief are a wild ride in and of themselves. Supplement that with the chaos that happens in our bodies and in our brains during menopause and perimenopause, which I am still just learning about, are wild. So, what do we do? First of all, I want to say, give yourself lots of grace. Lots of grace. And by that, I just mean acknowledge that it's hard and that it's legitimately hard. I don't even want to say harder. Say harder if you're going to use that to compare and comfort. Please don't say harder if you're going to use it to compare and despair. But hard. Give yourself lots of grace for how hard it is. So that's the one thing I want to offer. The second thing I want to offer is try to see both sides of the coin. And by that, I mean acknowledge that it's hard so you can take care of yourself, and see if you can get your brain to look for potential opportunities. That does not mean that you will be grateful that they died. That does not mean that you have to be grateful that you are empty nesting and experiencing widowhood at the same time. I'm not talking about forcing yourself to feel some way that you don't feel. I'm saying keep an open mind to the other side of the coin, which is that it is always still possible to live a life that is more of who you want to be. That doesn't mean you get to live it with the person you thought you were going to live it with. That doesn't mean your kids are going to be around for the day-to-day as you live it. But there's nothing anyone can do to take away your ability to choose how you live your life going forward. There's nothing anyone can do to take away your ability to think about yourself, to think about your life and what is possible for you, to make the kind of impact that you want to make, to get realigned with what matters to you. And maybe what matters to you is going to be different in this next chapter than it was in the one before. And that is the other side of the coin. It's full of pain, yes. And where is the opportunity? How can both coexist? And third, you are worth support. Please do not try to do it alone. Doing it alone doesn't make you stronger. Getting support doesn't mean you are weaker. Getting support is something I hope you would congratulate yourself for, in whatever way works for you. That looks different for everyone. Of course, I'm a coach. I'm going to tell you to come to my coaching program, okay? Because I'm biased in that regard. But I honestly don't care as much about what type of support you receive as I care that you give yourself the gift of getting support, whether that is some sort of group program, that is some sort of online support, that is some sort of therapy, an opportunity to talk, time with friends, time alone, whatever support looks like for you, find it, prioritize it, make it important because you are important. Don't go it alone. So many women are out there trying to go it alone, and it's just unfair. And we could be having a much easier experience if we didn't try to do that to ourselves. Okay? So give yourself lots of grace. Try to look at both sides of the coin. Yes, it is hard. And can you look for the opportunities? Can you look for how you can take this thing that has happened to you, if and when you're ready, and decide who you want to be so that you are living even more aligned with what you care about, with what matters to you. You're being even more of who you want to be. Nobody can take that from you. All right? And please, get support. Don't go it alone. All right? And if I can help, reach out. All right? Also, I wonder if this is you and I missed something. I gave you 6 things that I think, with the bonus of number 7 of menopause and perimenopause. But did I miss something? If so, what is it? Tell me. I would love to know. You can email me, Krista@coachingwithkrista.com. You can message me on Instagram, Life Coach Krista. You can find me on Facebook as well. But let me know. Did I miss something? I would love to hear your perspective on this. Okay? All right. That's what I have for you this week. Remember, I love you. You've got this. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.